You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hello, and thanks for dropping by again to Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, sponsored by Trailtopia Adventure Foods. We have another spirited young woman this week as our main guest. We're talking with Cathryn Pugh, or as you'll pick up from her delightful demeanour, Sunshine. A very apt name, let me tell you. I know I've had a few of these young women on the show before. They're always inspirational to me, and I hope to you. Cathryn provides a special type of inspiration, and I know that you're going to love her. Actually, Cathryn is so inspirational that I have a quick chat after I speak with her with somebody who was so taken with her achievement that she too is now planning on hitting the trail next year. On If I Hit It Again, we have the return of Nate Harrington, originally one of the two hiking Vikings, along with his wife, the lovely Sharon. When we last spoke with Nate and Sharon, they were expecting their second child. Actually, or maybe he'd just been born, I'm not sure. Well, now there's a third one on the way, so the hiking Vikings are rapidly becoming a horde of Vikings. It was nice to hear from Nate again. Last, but hopefully not least, we're up to Chapter 8 of The Year We Seize the Day by Elizabeth Best and Colin Bowles. This week we have another glimpse at Colin's inner demons, and tempers start to get a little bit frayed. If I said fried instead of frayed just then, that would have been a great segue to this. When I was hiking, I'd wake up to my alarm, deflate my AirPad and contemplate my blah breakfast. Every morning I poured water into those different coloured paper bags, scrunched around the ingredients, not one of which had any association with fruit, and then eat that soulless gunk. I then find unhydrated powder and sugar in the crevices of the bag. Trailtopia's blueberry oatmeal is a bit of a novelty because it actually has real blueberries. Who'd have thunk? No gunk. It tastes great, the bag design ensures complete hydration, and it really sets you up for the day. Try Trailtopia Adventure Food, the best of home cooking away from home. So now we have a little ray of sunshine in the shape of Cathryn Pugh. Cathryn thru-hiked the trail in 2017, and as you're going to hear, her logistics were a little different than most. Here's Cathryn. Right, I'd like to introduce you to Cathryn Pugh, or Sunshine. Hi, Cathryn, how are you?
Hi, Steve. I'm good. How are you?
Well, I'm fine, thanks. And actually, it was your mother who messaged me recently. And all she actually wanted to know was about Trailtopia Food, funnily enough, our sponsor. She wanted to know what the name of the product was. But in the message, she mentioned that you had hiked and you'd done something, and she was very proud of you for having done it. And it was what she wrote that made me want to speak to you more about it. Now, you did a through hike of the AT, it was last year, wasn't it, 2017?
Yes. Yeah.
And you did it because you didn't want to be held back by anything. What was it that may have held you back? Tell me about that. I know what it is, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I'm a type 1 diabetic
Okay.
and have been since 2012.
So how did that manifest itself when it came into your life? What was do you know the cause?
I got sick in March of my senior year of high school,
Right,
and it was probably something like a flu
right.
with high fevers and whatnot. And after that, I was having all of the typical type 1 symptoms, being excessively thirsty and constant urination, and just couldn't sleep at night because of the two. And so I knew that something wasn't right. And I eventually went to the doctors to get checked out.
Yeah.
And then, of course, one urine sample and sugar in the urine is the sure sign of type 1 diabetes. So my life changed after that.
And how did it manifest itself in your life? And did it place restrictions on what you could do?
I mean, I don't, I don't really see it so much as something that puts restrictions on my life. It just adds another element. So a little flavor, kind of.
So, but what do you do differently now than you would otherwise be doing? Do you think, or is it just a case of managing a situation the best way you can through knowledge? I presume.
Yeah, it's more of a management technique. Honestly, the disease itself, when managed well, which is, checking my blood sugar before every meal and before I go to sleep, and then adjusting my insulin based on what I'm going to eat. Uh, by doing all of those things, it's not really that big of a deal. I say that hesitantly because, of course, um, I was lucky in the sense that I was diagnosed when I was 18 and an adult and
Right.
fully able to understand what I was going through. Whereas a lot of type 1s don't have that sort of luck. I guess
Yeah.
not quite the word, but being a, a 2-year old and getting type 1 diabetes is vastly different than being someone who can give themselves their shots and consciously know that I have to eat this meal and it has 50 carbs in it, so I'm going to take 5 units of insulin. Whereas,
Wow.
like a toddler, um, a parent is the one taking on that responsibility, and who knows if that toddler is going to eat everything
Of course.
that
Yeah.
they took insulin for. So, in my case, it wasn't so much, it was hard mentally just in the beginning, naturally, with any sort of diagnosis. But once I was able to understand how it works and how my body handled it, it's not it's not a hindrance, I would say.
Right. Right. Well, this is why I wanted to talk to you. Obviously, I don't like the idea of talking to somebody really so much about they've got this illness they have to cope with. But it's more a case of you're now a hiker, and you're a hiker who happens to manage and cope with diabetes as opposed to a diabetic who hikes. And I think it's more important that you're a hiker now. So, how did you get into hiking in the first place?
So, my cousin's mother-in-law is a section hiker, and there was one year in 2014 that she needed someone to go with her on a trip in Tennessee for a week.
Right.
And my cousin knew that I was interested in hiking, but I've never done any backpacking up until that point.
Why,
So,
why, why were you interested in hiking? Where'd that come from, though?
oh, I just have always been interested in the outdoors. I have a degree in biology. I uh, have been an outdoors kind of person.
Right.
So I would do day hikes, surely, but I never had a chance to do a backpacking trip.
Okay, so you went on this trip with was it your cousin's mother-in-law? That's
It
an
was.
unusual relationship.
It is. It's a bit of a stretch, seems like, but it was so great, and she's knowledgeable and was able to, teach me the essentials of backpacking. And in that week, I hiked. Let's see, I hiked 80 miles into Damascus, Virginia, and
Right.
I just happened to catch it where we got there on the Sunday of trail days, which is just
Nice.
like the greatest luck because one, everyone tries to get to trail days, as you know. And for me, just being like this newbie hiker and getting to see everyone else's excitement for this festival is just really great. And I kind of fell in the love with the trail because of the culture and the people and just like, that camaraderie of we're hiking, we're doing this together. And, you feel like safe in that zone.
Yeah, I presume that as you were hiking in the week prior to trial days, then there's a lot of people around who are through hikers then, aren't they? So you
Yeah,
obviously must have met them in that week building up to trial days.
I
What
did.
was it?
Yeah.
What was it about them? Because by then we're all a bit scummy by then, and and that we've all assumed a dark grey to our clothes and our pallor, I guess, on our face. So what was it attracted you then?
Their stories, really.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, other than like just it amazed me because by the time you get to Virginia, how many miles are you in? 500, close to 500.
Yeah.
And just the idea of walking that far and it just blew my mind at that point. And the stories that they had, and you can't just make up something like that. Like some of the things that I would hear from them, I met a man, his trail name was Grizzly,
Right.
and he had hiked the trail. I don't know what year it was when he was younger.
It was
And
1998. That was Grizz, the grizzly bear from Maine. He was,
yes,
yeah,
you know Grizzly.
Grizz was a guest on my show in number 6, funnily enough.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm gonna have to listen to that one.
Stephen Martelli. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm sure in his episode you got to talk about why he hiked the trail again. So
Yes.
that is who I met on my first backpacking trip. And I was like, this guy is great. And we hiked to the top of this mountain to get to a shelter.
Yeah.
And we decided that we could either stay at the bottom or we could hike the 4 miles to the top.
Sure. Sure.
And it started to sprinkle as we started hiking up, and we're like, no, it's gonna be fine. And we get like 2 miles and it's a complete downpour.
Of
We're
course.
like, oh man. And so we have to keep hiking. So we get to the shelter, and Grizzly is sitting in the shelter, and we're completely soaking wet. And Mickey, my hiking partner, is cold and shivering, and she gets in her sleeping bag and is like trying to warm up, and I'm making her tea. And I just remember Grizzly, we were like, oh, we need some water. It's pouring. So there's plenty of water around, but it was the shelter where the water was like, it was something like point 0.5 down a steep hill,
Oh, nasty. Yeah.
something awful like that. And he's like, we're not doing that. And he like gets a bag, like a plastic bag out of his pack, and he just catches rainwater from the gutter.
Of course.
From the gutter. And I was just like, we're gonna drink that? And he had told me he had thru hiked before. This is his second thru hike, and I was like, well, if Grizzly thinks it's all right, then I'm gonna drink that.
Very cool. So you fell in love with the trail. I can't believe you fell in love with the trail because of Grizz, and he'll love to hear that, by the way, which is fantastic. So that's back in 2014, which actually was the year I hiked it as well.
Yeah.
So you fell in love with the idea, but there's 3 years passed till you did it. Why did you choose to do it in 2017 rather?
Well, it worked out. I was going to college in that time. So I ended up having to stay an extra semester to finish my degree. So I ended up graduating in December of 2016.
Oh, perfect.
Which was perfect. Yeah. So that means I started the trail February 18th, 2 months later. And it was just the most perfect timing to do that.
Yeah. Tell us about now. And this is why I really wanted to talk to you about the logistics of being a diabetic on the trail, because most people just eat tons and tons of sugary stuff. How easy was it for you, firstly, to plan a diet and then the logistics of actually doing it? Talk about the diet first.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I knew going into it that I would be able to eat more than I usually do because your body burns so much more from hiking all day. But I didn't expect the way my diet was going to go. In the beginning, I had boxes that I filled, and I think I only did maybe 6 drop boxes.
Right.
And I filled them with like more nutritious things. And my staple meal was always like couscous for dinner.
Right.
And I dehydrated so many different things like beans, and I had freeze-dried eggs, and I dehydrated salsa, which actually is quite delicious as a hike. So anyway, I did all of those things, and so after that, I would do resupplies because I didn't have enough boxes for the whole way, of course.
Sure.
And so I had to like figure that out as I was going. And going into it, I was like, I'm not going to do that thing where hikers just eat all the junk because they can, because they're hikers. I'm not doing that because I don't do that normally as a diabetic. That is not good. And so I was like, I'm not eating Pop-Tarts. No, I'm not doing that. I was on the trail for 2 days, and I remember seeing this little boy sitting on the side of the trail eating a Pop-Tart for a snack, and I walked by and I was like, "Oh, I need a Pop-Tart."
This is the bit I don't understand. So you've got a diet and you had a sensible, nutritious diet.
Yeah.
What can't you eat? Because
Oh, I mean, I tell this to people all the time. There's nothing that I can't eat. The thing is, as a diabetic, I know exactly what that is going to do to my body,
right,
blood sugar wise, of course. But I can eat Pop Tarts and ice cream and junk honey buns,
yeah.
but I just need to take the insulin for that. So that's just the thing about being a diabetic is I can eat anything. Diabetics can eat anything. They just need to correct it with the insulin.
So
And
every single meal you ate, you had to know was it not the calories, the amount of sugar? I mean, what is it?
the
You need to
carbs.
know the
Yeah.
carbs. You need to know the carbs, and you adjust your insulin according to those carbs.
Yes.
Does
Yep.
that mean the more crap you eat, if that's the word you were using
Mhm,
just
mhm.
now, the more crap you eat, the more insulin you have to have?
Yeah, essentially.
So
Go
some of
ahead.
that, and I'm interested in that. So how much insulin are you carrying with you? Because you must eat a huge amount of rubbish on the trail.
Well, that's the thing.
Because there are limits on what you can resupply with, aren't there?
Right. So the other part of this is hiking all day long is very different for my body. So when a normal meal for me is like 1 unit of insulin for every 10 grams of carbs,
Right.
while hiking, my body was so efficient at using the insulin that I probably was more at a 1 to 20 carb ratio.
Wow.
Yeah, which was great. So those times when I was eating crap, I didn't need as much insulin as I normally would. So it's
Okay.
just a matter
Interesting.
of like the so to bring it in, like hiking is actually really wonderful for my diabetes.
Right.
Yeah,
So that's one of my questions. Did the hike have a positive or negative effect on your diabetes? So it really did have a distinct positive effect on it.
it did. Yeah, it was really great for my diabetes, and it comes to a point where you realize that you can now eat this garbage because your body is like, "Nah, I can handle this." And then you start eating this garbage because you're just like, "Oh, honey buns, I can have 6 of those, one for every meal,
Yeah.
and I'll be fine." And then you actually feel like garbage because that's what you're eating.
Right.
And then later
So
you're like, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't eat garbage."
I'm going to come back to the logistics of doing this, but just want to know while we're on the subject of this. So your body is incredibly efficient, and as we all know, after we stop hiking, that efficiency drops off very quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
So how did that happen? Once you've finished the hike, and we're going to come back to the hike, as I say, in a minute. Once you'd finished the hike, what happened to your body, and what happened to your need for insulin as a result?
Well, I was in a bit of like it was difficult at first to readjust. And
Right.
it's like that even it happens as quickly as just a 0 day as well.
Right.
Because,
Wow.
because 0 days you're not hiking all day. So on my insulin pump, I can change the setting to know like you can program it to say how your carb to insulin ratio. And so
Yeah.
I have a setting for hiking and then I have a setting for normal not hiking.
How
So,
interesting. Wow.
yeah, so when I would get into a town and if I forgot to change it to the other setting, my sugar would be all out of whack because it's just you're not getting enough insulin because your body isn't working as hard. So getting back to, you know, coming back to the real world, as we say, it took a bit of adjusting to get my body
Yes.
back to feeling like, okay, this is where you're supposed to be.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's quite tough though, isn't it? But it's lovely that it had such a positive effect, but it just means you have to keep hiking all the time, which is
I know.
not
Yeah.
entirely practical. So now let's talk about the logistics of being a diabetic. What do you have to carry that other people don't have to carry? Because obviously everybody wants to keep their weight down. Did you have to
Right.
carry a bunch of stuff that of course nobody else has?
Yeah. So I was really fortunate to have my parents and my boyfriend as my support system in all of this
Right,
because it would be a bit different if I wasn't able to have someone come and drop off things for me every 2 months, month or so.
right,
But anyway, on a daily basis, I wear an insulin pump, and
right.
for the pump to change for a new round of insulin, it has 4 different pieces just for one change.
Oh,
So
wow.
if I'm carrying, it just depends on how many changes I feel like carrying with me. So in the beginning, I wasn't sure of how often I would need to change it and how often I would see people to get new supplies. So I carried like something like 10 different changes,
Oh,
which
wow.
is 40 pieces of equipment. I mean, some of the pieces are just as little as like needles, but
Yeah.
still that adds up after a while. And I also wore a continuous glucose monitor, which is a device that checks my blood sugar every 5 minutes, which is incredible. And
Every 5 minutes?
every 5 minutes,
Is
yeah.
that
So,
because you need it that often?
well, the idea is when when you're doing a manual meter finger prick check,
Yeah.
that is just one. It's like a snapshot of your blood sugar, and you can't tell if that. Say you have a reading, and a normal reading is between 80 and 120, and so if I had a reading of 90, I can look at that number and be like, "Oh, good, I'm in range," but I don't know that that number is actually dropping, or I don't know that that number is rising too quickly.
Wow.
So with the glucose monitor, it gives me that trend line and I can see exactly how my blood sugar is doing, especially when I'm, hiking up a mountain because
Right.
I could start a mountain and my sugar it's happened before where my sugar was like 200 because I just had trail magic. And then I get to the top of the mountain and it's 60 and I need to stop and eat another snack.
Yeah.
So um, that
You,
was
you sound so sensible with it though, and I think, and I love the fact that you did this because you managed it. Is the basic answer is if you can do this if you manage it, can't you?
sure. I mean,
And but you have to be very disciplined with it, I presume, don't you?
sure. Yeah. I mean, you could do anything with diabetes if you manage it
Right.
and you have the right, um, like the CGM continuous glucose monitor is kind of a luxury item. But if you recognize that as a necessary piece of equipment to have a
Sure.
successful trip, it becomes, something as important as your pocket knife,
Of
you know?
course it is. Of course it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Now, I know you actually started dating your boyfriend while you're on the trail,
Yeah.
but it wasn't one of those disgusting hookups with another hiker, was it?
No, no.
So
Yeah.
how'd that work out then?
Well, we had been best friends for 2 years before I started the trail. We went to college together.
All right.
And before we started hiking, he already knew how I felt about him, but he was reluctant to start anything since I was going away to hike.
All right.
So
Sensible.
before I left, I was like, "Okay, I'll see you later. I don't I don't know if this is going to be the same when we get back. So, bye." And so it took him all of 2 weeks before he decided like, "Oh shoot, he's gone." And so we started dating while we were on the trail, but it wasn't for another month that I didn't get to see him for like another month after that.
Right. So you were officially his girlfriend, having been his best friend. You became his girlfriend, but you
Right.
didn't see him for another month. That
Right.
sounds like a very nice arrangement. I got to tell you.
Yeah. And then he ended up visiting me a couple times on the trail to drop
Right.
off stuff and to see me. But then he hiked. He took off all of August from work and hiked the White Mountains into southern Maine. So I just
Oh
gave him
my
the
gosh,
easiest,
you
the
gave him the
easiest
tough
part,
one.
of course.
So what was it like for you? Was that your favorite part, the White Mountains, that whole area? What were your highlights of the hike? Was it up
Oh
there?
gosh, yeah, that's of course. The White Mountains are just so incredible, like way more incredible than any other part of the trail. And
Yes.
it's hard for me to, people ask me, where's a good place to hike that we can drive to in a day? What about Shenandoah? And I was like, yeah, Shenandoah is nice. And they're like, you don't sound that excited about it. And I was like, what? Okay, you gotta go to the Whites.
Yeah, once you've been up the Whites, there's not much else to tackle it, is there really? I mean,
Yeah. I also really enjoyed the Grayson Highlands and the ponies.
that was
That
pretty.
was one
That
of
was
my
pretty.
favorite places.
Yeah. Now, come back to the beginning of your hike. Were you? I mean, you obviously found it challenging. Everybody finds it challenging because it's tough. Were you generally fit before you started, or not?
Oh yeah, I worked out regularly, and I mean, I say this before, you can't ever be fully in hiker shape when you
No,
start the trail, of course,
that's
because
right.
to do that you have to hike every single day for 2 weeks to get
Yeah,
in shape. So
yeah,
I was fit enough to
yeah.
start.
But it's what it does though. It just exercises all the correct muscles, doesn't it? Once you get hiking,
Oh
and
yeah,
then yeah, they're just not muscles you've been exercising before generally.
yeah,
So you were prepared for it, and you say you can't really prepare for it. You were prepared for it, for far as that's concerned. But how did you know what gear to get? Because if you were kind of a newbie hiker, how did you know what sort of stuff to buy?
yeah. I was in college right before I started the hike, like I said, and that last semester I went to a conference in Orlando, Florida. And while I was there, I kind of stumbled upon this person who happened to like a picture on my Instagram. And I found out that he was a thru hiker.
All right.
And it was such a weird thing. His profile said something about like 4 different thru hikes and all of these trails that at that time I didn't know what they were.
Yeah.
And so I was like, "Oh my gosh, this guy's at the conference right now. I need to talk to him." And so I messaged him on Instagram, but he happened to already be on his way home. And he was just so friendly. He sent me a list of all of his gear that he has used on his trips. And I
Helpful.
pretty much just followed that.
Really? So you bought pretty much the stuff that he had, did you?
Pretty much, yeah. I bought the same exact pack that he had, which is the Gossamer Gorilla.
Yeah. And that
With
worked out. That worked out for you.
what was that? Oh, it worked out. Yeah, it was great.
So how much was your pack there when you started? Because of course you were carrying all this diabetes stuff as well. How much did it actually
Oh
weigh?
gosh, probably like 35. I
Wow.
think more than it was supposed to be for the pack, honestly. But I
Right.
did start mid-February as well, so I had all of this
Yes.
extra cold weather gear.
Yeah. Yeah. So you got yourself together. I mean, you're just out of college. If you don't mind me asking, how could you afford it? It's not cheap, is it, to hike the Appalachian Trail? How did you work out be able to pay for this?
Yeah. So I saved as much as I could before. I knew I was gonna go after 2014, but I probably didn't start saving until 2016. So probably that year. And then
Yeah.
I did a GoFundMe page as well.
Cool.
So I think I raised maybe $1,000 in the GoFundMe.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I mean now. Oh, I also sold my car. Okay.
How'd you
But
get around? How'd you get around then?
well, after that, I lived in a city, so
All right. So
I
you're good
sold
to
my
go.
car right when I started. So I wasn't without a car in the beginning, but I sold it to my brother as well. So I thought maybe one day I would get it back, but there's no getting that back. So
Yeah. Of course not. Of course
yeah,
not. So you've done this thing. You went up Katahdin. By the way, isn't that the greatest thing?
it's the greatest hike. Yeah.
And when you get to the top of Katahdin, touching that sign, it just there ain't there ain't nothing like it, is there? There's
Yeah.
just absolutely nothing like it. And so you were done. And what is the? I know actually what the answer is I want you to say it again because this was such a great thing you said. What was your biggest takeaway from the whole of the hike that you did?
So, I go into the hike thinking, knowing that I'm gonna hike the Appalachian Trail. So
Right?
I know that I'm gonna start and I'm gonna finish, and that's what's gonna happen. But then I get to talking to people and mention hiking the trail, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, that is the most amazing thing I've ever heard. I can't believe you did that. I would never be able to do that." And I think it's after the fact talking to everyone. that I then realized, like, oh yeah, I could do anything, like, no problem.
As I say, when we had this conversation before, I love the fact that you say that you can do anything. And I know people on my show have heard me say this before. I met some amazing, amazing young women in 2014. It was so they were out of my understanding, really. They were so, I use the word fierce a few times. I meant fierce in such a brave sort of way. They were so strong, they were determined, they knew what they were going to do. And all the women I met, literally every woman I met hiking on the trail finished. A lot of the men I met didn't finish. These women were determined to do it, and they went ahead and did it. And they've all these young women have now learned they can do anything at all. And it's not to sound patronizing at all, but because a lot of them, because as we were saying the other day, that a man always thinks he can do everything, but a lot of women
Right.
don't seem to. But you've now realised what most men think of anyway. You can do anything, can't you? There's no
Sure.
reason not to do it. And you went there with diabetes as well. I just think it was just extraordinary. And I can tell you, I'm going to say goodbye to you now, because we're actually going to speak to somebody else who I know you inspired so positively that person has got something to tell us as well about the influence you had on that person. And I'm going to say goodbye now, and thank you so much for chatting with us. But I'm now going to speak to this other person, and I know you know who it is. But I hopefully we speak again sometime.
Yes, I would love that. Thank you, Steve.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Wasn't she a sweetheart? Apparently her neighbour was mowing the lawn for part of that. Hope it didn't spoil your enjoyment. Her diabetes and never say die attitude were what really attracted me to Cathryn. And as I said, somebody else caught the bug of the trail when they followed what Cathryn was doing. Let's hear what they have to say. We've just spoken with Cathryn Pugh, and there's a lady on the phone right now. And I know that Cathryn's story has been an inspiration to you. So much so that you're considering hiking the AT yourself next year. First of all,
yes.
Is that true?
Yes, it is.
Right. And now you can tell us who you actually are.
I am Dawn Pugh, and I am Cathryn's mother.
So you've followed your daughter, obviously, on her hike last year. I mean, what hiking experience do you actually have then, Dawn?
I have no hiking experience.
As much as that.
So this is going to be quite the experience for me.
So in what way did Cathryn's achievement inspire you to really want to take on this journey?
Well, in the beginning, I was a little nervous with her hiking by herself, although she did start hiking with two college friends after college.
Right.
And I had no idea what the AT was all about or anything. But the more that she was getting involved with it, the more I researched it. And when I would go meet her on the trail, it was quite interesting to me. And then finding her, locating her at different points on the trail, meeting the people and talking with the people, it really was a big inspiration. And then, of course, the one thing that I did read was Grandma Gatewood's book.
Oh, did you?
Wow, she was the, ultimate to me.
Yeah.
Very, very inspiring. And I thought, well, at 60 years old, that's what I am. If she could do it at her age, I could do it. So.
Well, funny enough, just speaking with Cathryn, she told me that the main thing she learned was that she's found out at last, which she never knew before, that she can do literally anything she sets her mind to. Do you have that? Do you have that mindset already, or has Cathryn's example helped you with that mindset?
She's like me in that respect, and once I get my mind set on it, I go for it. So I'm going to try, although I do have one downfall, and I'm a little scared of heights. So there's going to be some things that I'm a little bit nervous about doing. And she told me that she thought about me when she was doing those weird hikes and climbing. And I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I'm hoping to convince a friend of mine to go with me. She was same age. She's the same age as me, and she was in the Army, and she also inspired me. When she was younger, she did the 100-mile hike with the full gear and all that, which I was like, wow. Good for you. You did that. So I'm thinking I can do something like this. So I hope you go with us.
How long has this held you? Was it while she was on the trail, or was it when she finished and you thought you might like to do it?
Oh, during the trail, while she was on the trail.
Right.
My husband and I both would like to do it, but my husband can't do it right this moment. So I'm going to try it. I'm going to see.
How are you going to prepare for it?
Well, my daughter's going to help me with it.
Perfect.
She, as a matter of fact, she had talked to me last week, as a matter of fact. She says, how about the end of September we do like a 4-day hike? I'll take you wherever, and we're gonna do it. And I says, well, I don't know if I have to, if I would like a hammock, because that'll kill my back. But, she says, I'm going to have both, a tent and a hammock, and you could try both. I said, all right. She's going to give me a big help on that.
I can tell you what, Dawn, there are some unlikely people who do this. So don't ever let anybody's, not disbelief in you, get to you, because only you can make yourself do it. It's got to be something I know I've told people before. For me, though, it crystallized in my mind the day before I started. It has to be something you want to do more than anything else that summer. And once you commit yourself to doing it, I never really wanted to turn back. So I really hope you do it. And I tell you what, I tell you what I'm going to ask you then for is to, if you get started, come back and tell us about it, and we'll chat about it then.
That would be great. That'd be great.
Super. Well, good luck, and hopefully we'll speak to you when you're on the trail.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, then. Bye.
Bye-bye now.
Yep, a mum was so taken by the people that she met and inspired by her own daughter that she's making plans on hitting the trail next year. Maybe we'll meet up on the trail, Dawn. Back to Cathryn for a moment. Her "I can do anything" comment was such a revelation for her, and I'm sure it will carry her through the rest of her life. When people tell you that they couldn't do something because they're too big, too small, too lazy, or just too scared, remember Cathryn's comment. She took this on and it empowered her, despite the additional burden that her diabetes imposed upon her. I love that attitude. So now it's
If I Hit It Again.
And the return of one part of the Hiking Vikings, Nate Harrington. As I mentioned in our chat, Nate's journey was so special that I couldn't have imagined how he would change it. But he does. Here's Nate. Okay, we're back on again with Nate Harrington. I don't know whether you remember, but Nate and his wife Sharon hiked the AT, and Nate proposed on McAfee Knob. Hi, Nate. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. Thanks for having me, Steve.
Well, good to talk to you again. And things have moved on. He sent me an email this morning. Apparently your third child is on the way.
Yes, we're expecting our third child, and we actually know we're having another boy. We're going to have 3 boys to round out the hiking Viking family.
Oh, my gosh. Congratulations to both of you anyway. I'm really pleased for you.
Thank you.
Now, you know what this is about? This is about the things you would have changed about your hike. And to be honest with you, I originally considered not contacting you because I can't imagine you would want to change anything about what happened to you. But you said you have got a few things and you know what they are. So tell us what you might have changed were you to ever do this again.
Well, listening to your podcast, I've heard this segment before, and it constantly reminds me to think about it. And I always stumbled on the first thing, and that was we had a deadline to hit. Right. And with my wife and I, we had just over 5 months to hike the trail. We always talked about how we would get rid of that deadline and have no deadline. And yeah, that's easy enough said, but it's not always easy to be done. So a lot of people aren't going to have that. So I thought more about it, and something came to mind that, well, I didn't think about from the beginning, and that was we documented our whole thru-hike on YouTube, and we did a long video log. And
yes,
from there, I've had so many fantastic relationships develop, and I've met so many people. But if I was to hike the trail again, I don't think I would record it. I don't think I would put the amount of commitment and energy into trying to document it. There's so much to be said for being in the moment. And I can remember seeing a sunrise and not thinking how beautiful it was, but how can I capture that?
Oh,
and how can I put that
yes.
into a video, or how could I share this with other people? Which, don't get me wrong, it was amazing, and I wouldn't change the hike that I did hike.
I'm sure.
But if I were to do it again, there's a lot of people now that are trying to do these vlogs and the video documenting.
Yeah.
And I don't think they realize how much work really goes into it, from, late nights at a hostel trying to edit video and trying to spend hours uploading video and trying to find service, to, like I said, being at a certain point in the trail and worrying more about how you can bring that part of the trail to the viewer side of it, and less about, wow, where am I right now? And what am I doing in my life? This is fantastic, So that would be the one thing that I would probably, if I was to do it again, I wouldn't worry so much about trying to capture the moment, just be in the moment.
Did you find it stressed you to try to get it done and captured on time, or was it just, I'm sure on the hike itself, particularly as the record you've got, and I actually watched your film again a couple of weeks ago, because I just love it. It's just I know it's a happy ending, so it's all good, but I know one assumes a certain obligation, and it's of your own making, obviously. Did you feel that obligation to keep putting content out there?
Absolutely. And I think that you're making quite a commitment just to try to commit to a thru hike. You know how much is involved in doing that. There's that commitment. And then once you decide, I'm going to share it with people, there's that added tier of stress or obligation. Now, that can actually be very helpful. I know that it was a driving force for me through some of the more difficult times on the trail, when I realized that I've got people that are not so much counting on me, but I don't want to let these people down. So it can help motivate, but it definitely added that extra little bit of pressure that I think if I was to do it again, that would be nice to not have.
So you'd almost be going under the radar. Do you know what? A lot of people who will listen to this will say, thank God for that, because I know a lot of people think that there's way too much technology on the trail, and part of it is people staring into their cameras. And you look at anybody goes, you see famous people, and you see always cameras in the air, pictures of these famous people, and they're looking at the camera, not at the famous person. Even at a sports event, they're looking at it through the camera. And it is all pervasive. So leaving it alone would be quite an interesting thing. And I mean, I filmed on the way, but mine wasn't, I didn't do a vlog or anything like that. I just did a couple of little films towards the end, just for my personal use, and I really liked it. As you may know, I'm going to be doing the AT again next year. I'm actually going to podcast from the trail, which will be very different from my journey as well. So,
but still a big commitment as well, though.
It is, but I'm trying to make it as easy as I possibly can for me. And you're right. As soon as you started saying it, I started not so much second guessing myself about the podcasting, but more. I do know it's a commitment, but it's a commitment I enjoy doing. So I'm personally looking forward to it. And at the end of the day, Nate, you are never going to top the films, the stuff that you recorded. So why would you try to do that on a second trail? Just do it differently if you were ever to do it. Yeah, exactly. Oh dear. Well,
I think for a lot of people that are thinking about doing it now, everybody can find their little happy medium. Yes, you want to record it. Yes, you want to remember it. And some people just jotting in a journal, that's enough, or snapping a few pictures. But yeah, I would definitely take it the simpler route and leave a little of the electronics behind.
Yeah. Now, was there anything else you would have changed? Or I mean, let's face it, yours was pretty darn perfect. So are you pretty much happy with how it was? Or is there something you thought to yourself, if we do that again, apart from the vlogging thing, if we do that again, I think I'd tweak this or I'd tweak that?
Yeah. This next time, I think I'll bring my children this time. That would be the last part. But other than that, I wouldn't change a thing.
Would you like to take all three of them, or all four? Well, you and Sharon take all three of them?
I think that would be really an amazing trip. I would definitely want to wait until they're older to even. We've always talked about. We've done a lot of camping with our two sons, and I'm sure when the third boy is here, we'll do more camping and hiking. But we try to limit it to. I don't want to get them into it too soon, or at least get them to have a bad experience where, maybe they won't like it so much. So we take very little steps, and until my children can tell me not only that they want to do a long distance hike like that, but that they also realize what they'd actually be getting into. And they're not going to be able to comprehend that until they're older. So this is nothing that would happen soon, but I think it would be fantastic to take such an amazing trip with the whole family.
I know, that is awesome. And I just want to say, by the way, and I'm looking at it as I speak, my Katahdin sign. Nate makes these amazing Katahdin signs, and if you've ever been on that brown sign, you really want one of these, let me tell you. My picture's in there of me looking crazy on the sign. And when Nate sent me the email this morning, he sent me a picture of his new venture. Can I tell people what it is? Do you mind?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It is the end of the Pacific Crest Trail. Is that also going to be for a picture as well? Is that going to be a frame?
Yeah, the side of the monument, the PCT monument, will have a spot for a similar 4x6 picture holder to kind of slide in the side. But also it'll stand alone, like the Katahdin side. It'll stand alone and can act as either inspiration for people that are aspiring to hike the PCT, or be able to be that thing that you display your picture on. I got in contact with the PCTA, and I asked them, I said, I use the Katahdin signs as my way of giving back to the Appalachian Trail, which is the trail that just changed my life. And I said, I haven't had a chance to hike the PCT, but I know it's something I would like to do, but I don't think I want to wait to start giving to this trail as well and help them continue all the work that goes into these trails. And they thought it was a fantastic idea, and I've made up some prototypes, and hopefully soon we'll settle on a design, and I'll start to make those.
I tell you what, man, I look at this every single day. There's never a day I don't look up at my sign and the crazy idiot on the top of it, which is me. But yes, I look at it, and I've got so much joy out of this that I'm not. This is not meant
awesome.
This is not meant to be a plug for Nate's signs, but I tell you, they are. I wouldn't say if they weren't great. They are fantastic. But look, it's been lovely talking to you, and thanks for sharing this with us. And I'm glad we did speak about it again, because I knew there had to be something you would want to change about your amazing hike, and I'm glad it was that. Okay, mate. So good talk to you, and we'll catch up soon. Okay.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.
He's going to take his lads on the trail. Wouldn't that be something? I'm not kidding you, by the way. Nate's Katahdin sign is so gorgeous and so meaningful to me that I look at it every single day, and it always takes me back there. No reviews this week. Indeed, we haven't had any for a while. If you like the show and you haven't reviewed it on iTunes, I'd really appreciate it if you could put down a few words of support. In fact, even if you don't like the show, let me know that too. We can always try to improve. Finally, we're up to Chapter 8 of The Year We Seize the Day. Ellie and Colin are getting on each other's nerves as they make their way through Spain. No curse words this week, though the constant laughter on my part continues to provide me with real editing challenges. Sometimes it takes me 3-4 minutes just to get Sometimes it takes me 3 or 4 minutes just to get a single sentence. I'll see you next week. Chapter 8, Day 7, Torres del Rio to Logroño. Colin, moonrise over Navarre. A shadowed quarter moon dips over the hills. Venus hangs just below in a star-fallen sky. The air smells of red earth and wheat. Dawn is still an hour off. As we walk, the trailing tendril of a hawthorn brushes the skin of my arm. Already the wind is warm, and there is a pattern of sweat on my back trapped under my cotton shirt. It's a difficult day for Ellie and me. We walk apart, largely consumed by our own thoughts. I've realised through my latest introspection that though I come across as an easygoing and affable sort of bloke at first, in reality I'm moody, complicated and self-obsessed. I'm not proud of this, but it's the way it is. The worst part is the rest stops. I spend an inordinate amount of time with my head in the guidebook. It may look like I'm profoundly interested in the local history and places of interest, but it's basically to avoid eye contact. I'm trying to hide what's going on here. I've developed a certain charm over the years, I've noticed. It helps keep people at bay. If they discover what I'm really like, and no one has so far, not even my former wife, and I was married to her for 20 years, I'm afraid they'll leave me. So I never let anyone too close. Someone once said of me that I was the sort of man who would definitely go to heaven, but that I probably wouldn't like God. I think what they meant was I was a personable sort of guy who privately considered he could run the world better than his own creator. This is completely true. I'm not at all accepting of speed humps in my path, let alone complete reversals. I have constructed in my mind my own map of my life, and I take any deviation from it as a personal affront from the universe and proof that there is no God. This might be construed as a slightly arrogant way to view one's life, even by me. In the unspoken contract between Ellie and me, it seems that I am to be the mentor, the strong, silent type, but already I can feel myself arcing up. Why? Isn't this what I want? What I try to set up in every significant relationship in my life? Why do I feel so angry about it? Ellie has a history with controlling, possessive men. Not me, though, surely. Then why are we starting to get so badly on each other's nerves? And we still have to spend almost another month living, eating and sleeping together. Yesterday she strode ahead, head down, listening to music. She has what Ali G would call the wellhead gear, some sort of iPod-style thing with every song she's ever heard on it. It's a pleasant morning and the green hills are lovely, but someone is digging a set of car keys into my left heel and their second knuckle into my neck muscle on the same side, and this takes some of the joy out of it. Ellie walks past, her boots crunching on the gravel. There's more sugar in a banana than there is in a Mars bar. We keep walking. Just thought I'd mention it. And she puts her headphones on and walks on. In Los Arcos, we are welcomed by a dog carrying his mate's turd across the street in his jaws. We stop at the church for a quick drink of water and hurry on. We pass the cemetery outside the town. The gated archway dates from 1814 and bears a cheery inscription in Spanish, "I was once what you are now, you will one day be what I am now." Ellie looks at me. What's that supposed to mean? One day I'm going to be a gate? Her attempts to humour me are benign. Some of the stones inside are ancient. Some of these people have been dead 200 years. Some of them might be Shirley MacLaine by now. I remember soon after I left school, I got a job in an office in London. I had to catch the train to the city with the rest of the great unwashed, as they were known, the inhabitants of my little commuter belt town. To get to the railway station, I would take a shortcut through the church cemetery. I remember looking at the gravestones as I look now at these moss-covered markers of lives come and gone, and thinking, geez, you're dead longer than you're alive. I promised myself that I would live before I died, and that I would risk, even if I failed, to make sure that happened. You got one go at this, son. Better give it your best shot. The Camino is part of my best shot. I've travelled the world, known what it is to love with every ounce of passion in my soul, written over 30 books. These are all things I have hoped and wanted to do. For all my failures and shortcomings, and there are many, I gave it my best shot, and I do not think that I let down that geeky teenager in the ill-fitting suit as he walked head down in the rain through that solemn grey Essex churchyard on his way to the 8:11 Fenchurch Street train. Yet recently something has gone wrong with the plan. The perfect picture fell down, leaving behind just a stain of where it had been on the wall. It was a fake, an artful reproduction, someone else's life, not mine. I don't want to think about this. The pain in my gut is getting worse. It's like walking with a stomach ulcer, but it takes my mind off my feet. This is starting to scare me now. I've never experienced anything remotely like it in my life. I look at Elle and smile reassuringly. Oh my God. A cameo of the Camino. You are walking on hot coals with a broken neck, your shadow lopes ahead of you, chased by the sun, and the only sounds are the tramp of your boots on the dirt path, the call of songbirds, and the wind ruffling the heads of the wheat like dried leaves. There are windmills on the distant Sierra. A monastery, ochre against the blue sky, rises from a green and rounded hill. It's a rolling landscape of jade and chamois, wheat and asparagus. I can see now how the medieval pilgrims navigated their way from town to town. They followed the line of church spires from hill to hill. Once their village hovels crowded around them, and in most the old quarters still remain, narrow cobbled streets and window boxes and bodegas and cantinas. Here in rich Navarre, the houses are grander, white stone with affluent red roofs. In the 70s, there was an exodus from the cities back to the country as rich Navarrans inherited Granny's old cottage after she fell off the perch, and they renovated it with city money, working flexi hours from their rural retreats or using them as weekenders. The sun rises and we walk on to the next village. I ask Ellie why it smells like Weetabix round here. Because the fields are full of wheat. Tramp, tramp, tramp. Right. We meet a man who has walked all the way from Marseille to Santiago and is now on his way back again. He has been walking for 4 months. Another month and he'll be home. Is he inspired, brilliant or crazy? The decision is split. But we both agree he has great legs, brown, well muscles, and he has a French accent. I'm jealous. Women just love tight buttocks and broken English. We look along the valley to the distant sprawl of Logroño. There are fields of asparagus and vines. And of course, wheat. I should prepare myself. There's a lot more of the stuff to come. Colin, Cupid's little yellow arrows. The Camino is extraordinary. It is almost impossible to get lost. All along the way you see a yellow arrow painted on curbstones, walls, culverts, trees, rocks, telegraph poles, bridges, dead dogs, everything that doesn't move, pointing the way to Santiago for the peregrinos that walk this route every year. Once I even saw a yellow arrow painted on a car. The car was abandoned and had been there a very, very long time. The numbers on the pilgrimage have grown. I look back up the dirt road and today we have ourselves a convoy. There is one long line of teenagers, a youth group from Germany, also a few families sauntering along as if they were at the beach. Most others are like us, travelling in pairs. We even pass a woman in a wheelchair. Her name is Francesca and she has multiple sclerosis. She thinks she will probably die before she reaches Santiago. She's been pushed by an older man with cropped grey hair and a wiry frame. He never speaks. I wonder if he's mute. He is her lover, we learn. Francesca has come from Rome to make her final pilgrimage, and this is the way she has chosen to die. She's brave, her lover is incredibly strong. We have seen them several times, labouring along stone tracks. She wears a large brimmed hat and cradles a small dog. In the breaks, he stands a little aside and smokes cigarettes. We meet so many people and hear so many names that it's easier to call people by where they come from or what they look like. Canada looks like Clark Kent. Bavaria looks like Harry Potter, though in a bizarre twist, she turns out to be a 19-year-old girl from Augsburg. There is Norway and Ireland and Manitoba and Armidale and San Sebastian. Strategic alliances are being formed already. The yellow arrow has become Cupid's dart and love has been blooming on the trail for some time. Ireland was on his way home, got as far as Bilbao, and came back for Canada. One day, Dermot was standing on his own by the windmills outside Pamplona, and the next time we see him, Dublin and Manitoba are twin cities. Meanwhile, Australia is coupled with Spain and Norway has very smoothly invaded Germany, which is a nice change. But this is all somehow appropriate. This is the ancient way to Venus.
Ellie, whose demons? Colin said something last night that's bothered me all day. Your demons might seem real, Ellie, but they're simply not there. In the same breath, he told me he fights dirty when he's angry. He goes for the jugular, the hot spot he knows will hurt. He said this like a pro who's perfected the art of bare-knuckle boxing. He returned from the bar to find me sitting alone as night fell gently on Torres del Rio. Within minutes, an argument had broken out. A disagreement about something trivial. Nada de nada. Like new lovers, it was our first tiff. Something insignificant and pointless that we both knew would pass. It was over as soon as it began and ended with this line. I know your demons might seem real, Ellie, but they're simply not there. I still wonder what he meant by it. Without explanation, it was unfair and, like many of his opinions, patronising. But that's Colin. The ego often overshadows the man. I've never known anyone with as many demons as he has. He wears them like a monk wears a cloak. They hide a lot, and it's hard to know what's really going on underneath. But this isn't about him. It is about me. And if his comment meant nothing at all, it would have left me by now. I analyse his words with every step, trying to find grounds for them. And still I can't. I fought personal battles as he has, similar in some ways and different in others. What gives him the right to just discount any fear that remains? Passing a large paper factory along the final stretch, we arrive on the outskirts of Logrono, a fairly substantial city built on a river's edge and consisting predominantly of stone causeways and century-old buildings. Neither of us has the spring in our step or the light in our eyes we had a week ago in Pamplona. It's the first large city we've seen since then, and we have allowed ourselves a rest day tomorrow to enjoy it. It will also be a chance to reflect on what's happened in the last week. My mind now needs a break from the trail as much as my body does. I'm restless out here, sick of following my feet, being guided and directed by little yellow arrows at every turn. I'm craving independence. Do I wear lace or cotton underwear today? I have one set of each, both black, and this is the current extent of my sovereignty, freedom. We have decided to lighten our packs in Logrono while we have the opportunity. I'm already down to 2 sets of everything, socks, pants, singlets. I'm not sure how much more I can cull. But the promise of a lighter weight on your back is like finding room for pudding at the end of Christmas dinner. Whether you think you can or not, you do. Let's start with the 2 litres of holy water I've been lugging since passing through Lourdes. Alberg rules state that pilgrims can spend only 1 night before they must move on. This changes, however, if a pilgrim is sick or injured. Watching each pilgrim penny and facing the prospect of having to pay for a hotel for the following night, Crafty Cole returns to the Alberg with a medical certificate from the hospital. Done, he says, and sends me off to invent an injury for myself. I have several options. My left knee is a bubble of fun, a swollen mass of blended mulberry shades. My feet are full of blisters, 14 at last count, and I've developed a rather suspicious clump of bruised tissue on the calf of my right leg. I'm not sure what that is. Like the blisters and the knee, it too is growing by the day, but looks much worse than it feels. I tell the doctor to take her pick.